Bollywood Silver Screen presents Gone Girl. The story begins with Nick visiting his sister at her bar. It's Nick's wedding anniversary. He's been married for 5 years, but he's not happy in his marriage. He tells his sister that he might get divorced soon. He also shares that every anniversary his wife Amy plays a game with him. She hides a gift and gives him clues to find it. But now it seems like their marriage has lost its spark. After that, when Nick comes home, he sees that his wife isn't there. He sees that the table in front is broken, so he calls the detective. The detective comes to the house with her assistant. While searching the house, the detective begins to suspect that Nick is behind his wife's disappearance because they find evidence showing that Nick and Amy had serious problems in their marriage. Nick works as a writing teacher, while Amy was a famous writer in her teenage years. With Nick as the prime suspect, he's taken to the police station and questioned. Nick doesn't give clear answers to their questions. However, there isn't any solid evidence against him, so the detective has no choice but to let Nick go. Since Amy is somewhat of a celebrity, her sudden disappearance gets a lot of media attention and the news spreads across the country. Nick doesn't seem very involved in the search, so people begin to suspect that he and his sister might have made Amy disappear for money. Back home, Nick starts thinking about the past. We learn that Amy, who was both rich and famous, married Nick, who came from a middle-class family. Both of them worked in writing, but during the recession, they both lost their jobs. Later, Nick's mother falls ill, so he decides to leave New York and move closer to her. Even though Nick didn't talk to Amy about this decision, she still moved there with him. Even after his mother passes away, Nick decides to stay in the same place. Now, he doesn't feel motivated to work, so Amy opened a bar for him, which his sister helps him run. It seems like Nick doesn't want to put in much effort himself. Meanwhile, Nick's relationship with Amy keeps getting worse. Later, Nick gets a job as a writing teacher at a college where he meets a student named Andie and soon begins an affair with her. The story shifts back to the present. The detective finds some bloodstains in Nick's house. This discovery makes the detective even more suspicious of Nick. The detective also hears from neighbors that Nick and Amy often fought, and Amy felt unsafe, so she bought a gun. While searching the bathroom, the detective finds Amy's urine sample. Lab results show Amy was pregnant. Nick denies this completely. He says there was no such relationship between him and Amy. The detective is suspicious of Nick, so she doesn't trust anything he says. Then one of Nick's neighbors shows up and claims to be a good friend of Amy. She says Amy always wanted to have a family, but she and Nick never really had a relationship. That's why she was never able to plan for a family. Nick finds this suspicious, since he knows Amy never got personal with their neighbors or liked making friends with them. He shares this with the detective, but she still doesn't trust him. The detective also finds Amy's burnt diary, where Amy wrote that Nick was a threat to her life. The detective's assistant says they should arrest Nick, but they still don't have any solid evidence that Nick is the one who killed his wife Amy. Meanwhile, we see a woman driving a car. It's Amy, and she has completely changed her appearance. Amy remembers going to the bar to meet Nick and seeing him outside with Andie, his student, standing very close together. This hurts Amy a lot because she has always supported Nick. Even though she came from a wealthy family, she still chose to marry Nick. When Nick's mom got sick, Amy moved with him to take care of her. When Nick had no money or job, Amy opened a bar for him, but now she can't tolerate the fact that he is cheating on her. She also learns that Nick plans to divorce her on their anniversary, so Amy decides to take revenge on Nick. She intentionally spends a lot of money on Nick's credit card to make it look like Nick is being reckless with their finances. She also has Nick sign insurance papers to increase her policy, so it appears he has a motive to kill her for the money. She becomes friends with her neighbor, who is already pregnant. She tells her neighbor about her constant fights with Nick, hoping to win her sympathy. She also intentionally puts her neighbor's urine in her own bathroom, so the police will think Nick killed his wife because she was pregnant, and that way he would get the toughest punishment for killing a pregnant woman. She draws her own blood and puts it on the floor, making sure the police will find her traces. Every wedding anniversary, she played a game with Nick where he had to find his gift using clues. But this time the clues were not for Nick, they were for the detectives. Nick goes to his sister's garage and finds a lot of shopping bags. All the purchases were made using his card, and inside the bags they find the murder weapon. His sister gets very scared because she realizes she could get caught up in all of this too. He leaves everything there and goes away, but the detectives who had been following him all along arrive at the garage and discover the murder weapon. After this, both Nick and his sister are arrested. Nick gets bail and goes back to New York where he hires a top lawyer. He tells the lawyer everything and admits he never felt safe around Amy. He felt that in some ways she was a psychopath. Nick then meets Amy's first boyfriend, who she had falsely accused and even got arrested. After talking to him, Nick understands that Amy is trying to get back at him. Next, Nick tries to meet Amy's second boyfriend, who is very wealthy, but this boyfriend refuses to speak to Nick because he still loves Amy. At the same time, Amy is shown living in a small town. She is out with her neighbor. Her money accidentally drops, her neighbors notice, and that night they come to her house and steal all her cash. Now she doesn't have any money left, so she calls the same boyfriend who still loves her. She asks him to meet and tells him that Nick always tortured her. She claims that Nick was a danger to her life. That's why she left home, and now she doesn't want to go back. Her ex-boyfriend takes her to his lake house and tells her she can stay there for a while. He tells her that nobody ever comes to this place. Back in Amy's hometown, people still believe she's alive, so they organize a candlelight march for her. At the march, Nick gives an emotional speech begging her to come home. Nick's girlfriend Andie is in the crowd, and when she hears his speech, she gets very upset. She reveals to the press that she and Nick are having an affair. After this news, everyone begins to hate Nick. People are convinced that Nick either made his wife disappear or killed her. After that, Nick meets with his lawyer. His lawyer tells him that now all the evidence is against him, but he should go on a popular talk show and openly tell everyone how much he loves his wife. You have to admit your mistake on the show. Nick should say he wants his wife and family back, because if Amy is plotting against him, she's probably watching all the media coverage. She might get emotional hearing what you say and decide to come back home. Nick goes on the talk show and says he loves his wife very much. He asks her to come home and even pretends to cry. Amy watches the interview with her ex-boyfriend, Colin. She sees that Nick is wearing the same tie she once gifted him, and while she's watching his interview closely, her ex-boyfriend Colin also notices this detail. Now Amy wants to return home, but Colin doesn't want her to go. He wants her to stay with him. Amy's heart and mind are slowly beginning to change. She becomes angry with Colin because he's keeping her from leaving. Meanwhile, the detective finds Amy's blood on the weapon that was found in Nick's sister's garage, along with the gift. That's why the police arrest him once again. But once again, his lawyer gets him released on bail. On the other hand, Amy starts acting very nicely with Colin. She acts in front of the cameras as if she's agreeing to everything he says. Actually, she's now working on a completely different plan. Amy is very crafty with her plans, and when Colin leaves, she makes injury marks on her own body. At night, when Colin comes back, Amy begins to seduce him. They get very close to each other. Then Amy kills Colin, escapes by car, and heads straight to her house where the media is already waiting. She notices Nick standing in front of her, but Nick already knows this is just another one of her schemes. Afterwards, she's taken to the hospital where she tells the detective that back in school, Colin and she were boyfriend and girlfriend, but they eventually parted ways. But his obsession with her never ended. He kept sending her letters, and one day, on her anniversary, Colin showed up at her house. Trying to get away, she ran into the kitchen, but Colin attacked her with a rod, knocked her out, and took her to his lake house, where he assaulted her repeatedly. If you want proof, you can check the CCTV footage from Colin's lake house. In fact, she acted on purpose in front of the cameras to make it look like Colin was holding her captive. But now, the detective who's been working on this case for a long time starts to have doubts about her story and begins to trust what Nick has been saying all along. The detective asks Amy, if Colin really kidnapped you, how did the murder weapon end up in Nick's sister's garage? Amy avoids the question and says, if I hadn't come back, you would have put my innocent husband in jail, then pretends to faint. But now the detective has started to doubt her. After that, Nick brings her back home and tells her to stop this act now. He says, I know you're lying and I know you killed Colin. Amy first checks to make sure Nick isn't recording her, then confesses the whole truth. But no one will believe him now because everyone supports Amy. She tells Nick, after I saw your interview, I knew you were the one for me, and that's why I came back. Nick decides to tell everything to his lawyer and the detective. He tells everything to the detective and the lawyer, but the detective says, I don't have any evidence against her. She says Amy killed Colin in self-defense, so she can't be arrested for it. Later that night, while Nick is at home, Amy tells him, you have to fulfill all the duties of a good husband. Nick is starting to feel afraid of Amy. The next morning, a reporter is coming to interview them. Amy tells Nick, you have to agree with all the stories I made up. For example, you were the one who used the credit card to shop. You hit me. Our relationship was troubled before, but now everything is okay. But Nick doesn't want to do this. He's made up his mind to leave Amy. He wants a divorce. Amy tells Nick, I'm going to be the mother of your child. Nick is stunned, because there hasn't been any relationship between them for a long time. They haven't been close for months. Amy explains, the sperm samples you gave at the fertility clinic, I used those and now I'm pregnant with your child. Nick is completely stunned by this revelation. He loses his composure and says, you can't do this. I will never stay with you. Amy insists, you have to stay with me. The whole world is against you, and when your child is born, I'll teach them to hate you just like everyone else. Now Nick is completely trapped. He knows the child is his responsibility, so he decides to stay with Amy. Then, we see an interview where both announce that Amy is pregnant and will soon have a baby. Nick has finally accepted the situation. He just wants to give his child a better life. That's why he's decided to stay with Amy. In this story, Nick wasn't able to do anything. But if you were in Nick's shoes, what would you do? Let us know in the comments below. We hope you enjoyed this story.